Hello, glad you're with me today. It's a really good day. Promise of storms ahead perhaps, so put the bucket over your head in case it hails. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day and just glad you're with me. So come on into my little world. Spend a moment with me and let's think a little bit together. He was 39 years old and he had a problem. Frank had a problem. Most people called him Franklin. But he had a problem. He was losing a lot of his abilities. Could be a lot of things. Been sick, but he wasn't recovering. Because he was losing some of the functions of his body, he began to become depressed. But then realizing he needed to do something, as the virus in his body waned, he began to exercise, working hard, developing, swimming again and again and again, regaining strength in some of the areas of his body, but not really in his legs. He ultimately succumbed to the point that he was going to have something to support his legs, which he did. We typically know him as Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or FDR. He worked hard in his life, in his adult life, after succumbing to polio, or infantile paralysis as it was known. And not giving into it, he fought. And he fought. He strengthened his upper body, strengthened his arms, his back, the trunk of his body, but he never could really get his legs back where they could truly support his body. They built braces for them that really covered most of his legs and locked in the middle so that he could somewhat swing his body and kind of walk stiff-legged. When he had found the disease ravaging his body, he had walked out of public life as much as he possibly could. But he didn't walk out of life. He gave it everything he had, became inventive, developed his own wheelchair that he could use to get around the house. But whenever other people were around, he wanted to kind of cover his illness as much as he could, or his, not illness, but his difficulties as much as he could. Returning again to the political life that he loved so dearly, he tried in his adult life to kind of cover for the limitations that he had, for the braces on his legs, for the awkwardness with which he would move. Press photographers were prohibited from taking pictures of him getting in and out of chairs and the difficulty that was found there, or getting in and out of his car. Pictures were to be taken while he was standing and standing erect, or sitting in his car where it looked absolutely normal. He wanted everything about him to look normal to those round about. And in the late 1920s, or in the 1920s and the 1930s, and even up to the time of the war, something like polio was seen as a weakness. We didn't always understand it. And so he tried to cover for it. Even the desk in his office had a cover in front of him so that his chair would not be seen and would look normal sitting at a desk. He tried to do everything he could so that the public image of him was a man in control and able to manage things, to look strong and powerful. He did everything he could to hide what we might think of as the limitations brought on by the disease. It's interesting when you look at it now. And we look back, and one of the most notable things that we see about Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the fact that he dealt with his infirmity, that he moved forward, that he rose to the most powerful position in our country. And whether you agree with his politics or think they worked well or not, he served this country popularly longer than any president in history or any president of this country ever will, unless we have a change in our Constitution. He left a mark on the country. He saw it through some difficult times. He saw it through the Great War, World War II. He left with us a legacy. And whether, as I said, you agree with his politics or not is immaterial. You see the forthrightness, the determination, and the strength with which he faced what was going on with his own body. And yet he still gave what he had to his country from the position that he could serve. I would say from one position, he was something of a hero. Except that he tried to hide what he had. Maybe it was the times, and maybe we've come a long way since then. Today, with so many political movements and other things, we've determined we're going to try to overlook those things in the sense of making everyone be accessible. Maybe we've gone to extremes. I don't know. That's for somebody else to judge. But we no longer look at someone in a wheelchair as if they are weak or less. We try to, as best we can, incorporate, accommodate, deal with them as if they're just like anybody else. Maybe getting in and out of a chair is easy for most of us, and other people can't even get out of a chair. But does that make them less of a person? Not at all. But to try to hide what might seem to be a weakness or an inhibition by a chair or a lack of legs or some other problem that comes, it's intriguing to look at some of the great heroes of intellect and thinking and the challenges that they have faced. I think as time goes by, we begin to recognize that those who face their challenges don't hide them, but work to overcome them and deal with the world from where they are. Those become our heroes. Yet in all of this, we always need to depend and be strengthened by others round about us. Whatever our weaknesses might be, turn them into our challenges and turn them into our opportunities. It was Paul that wrote in the 2 Corinthian letter in the 12th chapter that he had some sort of problem, a thorn in the flesh. He pleaded with the Lord 3 times to remove it. But what the Lord told him, beginning in verse 9 of that great chapter, is, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." Therefore, Paul said, "Most gladly I will rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore I take pleasure in the infirmities and reproaches and needs, in persecutions and distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong." Well, FDR may have seen in his time the difficulties that he had as a perceived weakness. We look back now and we see a man who with strength overcame. When we see our weaknesses, we need to recognize it's an opportunity for God's will and God's work to be even stronger in us. Think about that today. Where you see you might be weak, it's truly the opportunity for the greatness of God to stand strong. Hey, I hope you have a great day. I hope today's a blessing to you. And let me encourage you. Go out and be a blessing to someone else. You'll be glad you did, and they will too. Hey, more to share down the road, but thank you for being with me